Hello, and welcome to the MRO Show, presented by Chadwell Supply. I am your host, Michelle Childers. Chadwell Supply is 100% dedicated to the multifamily industry. Your order, our truck, delivered the next day. Learn more at chadwellsupply.com. Stephanie, welcome back to the MRO Show. We had so much fun last year.
We did. Thanks for having me back, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited that you are here. You always bring this wealth of insight to what we need to know as leaders and about leading our teams. So I just want to dive right into talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you do with John Maxwell. So leadership's often associated with titles or positions, but John Maxwell teaches that leadership is influence. What does leading with influence truly mean to you, and why does it matter?
Yeah, great question. So one of John's, he has so many quotes that are my favorite. Okay.
Me too.
But one specifically about influence, and I believe this wholeheartedly, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So what does that mean though? Oftentimes we see leaders that, have a certain position or a title. And while hierarchy in business is important because it helps us define roles and responsibilities and who's responsible for what, oftentimes people mistake authority for leadership. And leadership isn't about authority. Even though it's an element that's sometimes important in that hierarchy, that's not what leadership is about. It's not, I'm the boss, therefore, right? Leadership is influence. And so what does that mean? How do we influence other people to not follow us because they have to, but to follow us because they choose to or they want to? And we talked about this last year, but people don't leave companies, they leave bosses.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if leaders are just leading with authority, chances are it's not going to be really effective. And so I help people to really embrace leading with influence and understanding what that means and how to do that effectively.
Well, and speaking along those lines, your tagline for your company is leading people and teams to success.
Yeah.
How does influence play a role in fulfilling that mission that you have in your tagline?
Success isn't just about outcomes and results. Obviously, we all want to achieve results as business owners, as business leaders. We have KPIs and metrics and all of the things that we want to achieve. But leadership is not just about outcomes. It's about how do we successfully empower others to achieve success. And so, I leverage Maxwell content, but I also leverage Patrick Lencioni, the 5 dysfunctions of a team.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go through those 5 dysfunctions, inattention to results is the 5th dysfunction, but you can't get to results if you don't establish the baseline with trust and accountability and all of those things first. And so to me, what I try to do and what I strive to do with my clients is to help them really understand what it means to empower their team by really focusing on the people piece more than just the data and the results.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very powerful, very, very much needed too in today. So before we dive too deep into this, I want you to tell us about your personal leadership journey, because you have a really great story. And what inspired you to focus on transformable leadership and building resilient teams and leading change? Because I know that you're very passionate about this topic.
Yeah. So early on in my career, I was really fortunate to have a leader that immediately invested in me and my growth. So I remember, I was in college looking for an apartment, and I walked into an apartment community in downtown Austin and walked out with an apartment home, and a job.
Oh, wow.
And I thought this will be really fun while I'm in school. And here I am all these years later, right?
Yeah.
But what that leader did for me is she really invested in me as a person in both my personal and my professional growth. And so I've seen really early on what empowerment can do to elevate people. And so I'm passionate about really helping leaders understand how to do that because by empowering your team and developing them, and really ultimately we talked about influence, but a leader's job is not just to get things done through others, but ultimately leaders developing other leaders. And because I was fortunate to have leaders invest in me and do that, I want to help more leaders create more leaders.
And, that's really important. I feel like that when you do that, you also gain a lot of loyalty from the people who you are supervising when you're helping to develop them as a future leader. I know so many times in this business, sometimes people, they simply are, they're getting to that next level and then they're afraid that somebody's going to take their job or jump them to get something else. I always said, I want to hire somebody who's smarter, brighter, knows more than the average bear, right? So that basically they made me look better, right?
Absolutely.
And I've always learned so much from the people who were around me. But I was a big investor also when I was managing people of their future and making sure that, I was developing them for the next step and that they had a clear vision of if they wanted to be where I was in my career. And that stands from when I was a manager all the way until I was a vice president, with in sales. John Maxwell teaches 5 levels of leadership. How do these levels help leaders build influence, especially in multifamily?
Oh, great question. So John has written over 91 books and he's still writing. The man just turned 78 earlier this year. I did a Live to Lead event on his birthday, which is also National Leadership Day. But one of his books that I absolutely love, and you can actually listen to it on Spotify.
Oh.
And he narrates. So what I like to do is have my book open and hear him narrating.
Yeah.
But it's called The 5 Levels of Leadership. And the 5 levels of leadership, the very first level is positional leadership. It is the lowest level of leadership. And it's basically, you have to follow me because of my title and my position. Right. The next one is permission. And this is when people follow because they want to. And basically the team member is giving the leader permission by saying, I'm choosing to follow you. Not I have to because of your position, but I'm choosing you. So that's permission. The next level up is production. And this is when team members are following a leader because they see what that leader does. So production, they achieve high results. They have great vision. They're moving forward in the right direction. They say, I want to work for this person because they are getting things done. Okay. Yeah. The next level is people development, which again, I'm most passionate about. This is the highest, almost the highest level, second to highest level. This is when people are following the leader because of what the leader does for the individual team members on their team. Again, leaders should be developing other leaders. This is one of the most impactful things, and the statistics show that too. So if you look at the research and statistics from Gallup or Pew Research, team members will stay longer in an organization and be more loyal the more that development opportunities are given to them. And then the highest level of leadership is pinnacle. And this is when people follow a leader because of who they are. And I think, we can think about in both of our careers, we've probably worked for leaders, I know I have, that have embodied each of those levels. I've certainly worked for someone that was, very much, it's because of my title and who I am. You have to follow me. It's ultimately ineffective. And really what that is leading by fear. Right. So the leader is leading by fear. There's not a whole lot of longevity in that. Yes, it may work over the short term because people are scared to make a misstep, but over the long term, you're going to lose them. right?
Right. Yeah.
And then I've worked for some leaders who I would follow them wherever they asked me to go simply because of who they are. And they did the other things. They focused on developing me, right?
Right.
They
Created a loyalty in
100%.
you because of what they did
Yeah,
to help you get to where you were going and putting you on the right seat of the right boat, right?
Well, and I followed them. Like I can think of a couple people off the top of my head that I followed that embodied every single one of these levels. I respected them because of their position, but they had my permission.
Right.
I respected them because of the production, what they were able to do, the opportunities that they invested in me for people development, and ultimately because of who they were. And that's what we should all be striving for as leaders.
Yes, if we could get everybody to follow us because they liked who we were and how we treated them. And speaking along those lines, because you were saying that, you have experienced this, if you could share a story with me where transformable leadership had a measurable impact on a team that you worked with or a team that you were on.
Yeah.
Do you have any of those that you might be able to share?
Yeah, I have a few. So, before I went on off on my own as a consultant, speaker, and executive coach, I worked for, a very large company in multifamily for half of my adult life, 21 years.
I remember that, yeah.
And, we were a big ship and kept growing, and we're going through a lot of change really all the time, acquiring other companies. And I can specifically remember when we were going through a ton of change, and a lot of our leaders were really feeling emotionally drained and overworked and stressed. And we had a big company meeting that we had annually. But this particular company meeting, this is right before COVID blew up, by the way, but it was still kind of happening.
Yeah.
At this particular company meeting, the entire focus of the meeting was on mental health and self-care. And
came at the right time.
It was amazing. But the fact that they they brought in 600 leaders, that much money on speakers, hotels, all of the things, we weren't focused on anything traditionally that we would have normally spent time doing, operational focused, operational excellence. It was all about, is everyone okay? And we want to make sure you're okay. And how can we take care of you? And here are all these sessions that you can pick and choose based on what you need most. And lastly, I distinctly remember our head leader getting up on stage and sharing a very personal story about his own challenge with stress and burnout and needing to ask for help. And when he shared that, I get chills just thinking about it. It was such an impactful moment. And a lot of leaders would never do that because they would either be too proud or they would have a fear that if I do that, it shows weakness. But it was the opposite. He showed strength, and he also increased loyalty because now he gave everyone in the room permission to admit when they weren't okay.
Yeah.
And to permission to ask for help when they needed it. It was the most beautiful thing. I will never forget that.
That authenticity, being able to see that true person, it makes all the difference in the world. It gives a level of trust. I feel like when I know something that is of a personal nature from someone who is my leader as well, it makes them a little bit more humanized in my eyes.
Just how powerful to do that, to trust us enough to do that. And to show, I had already respected this leader for many years, but that moment, like my respect for him just went through the roof. It was incredible. Yeah.
Well, we were talking about change and change being constant. What principles do strong leaders use to lead that change? Do you have some little tips for us on that you could share?
Yeah. There is an actual process to change. There is an 8-step process that John Cotter, and there's some other people have put them together, but John Cotter has an 8-step change model that I leverage. And so that change model really teaches people what they need to focus on during the change. And I've been doing some podcasts of my own lately and interviewing some industry leaders about change. And a lot of them are doing some really great things. So You talked about trust just a moment ago. First and foremost, when your organization is going through change, what your people need from you most as a leader is they need to know that they can trust you, because their apple cart is being upset, right? It's
Right.
who moved my cheese? Where's my cheese? There's a lot of emotional distress that goes on internally for the majority of people when change is happening,
Right.
because I no longer know. Like, I felt safe. Now I feel unsafe. There's a lot of emotional fear that's happening. And so what leaders need to focus on the most is really establishing a high level of trust with their team. And interestingly enough, you mentioned being human and authenticity, to develop trust when there's maybe not. The best way to develop trust with others is to be more human, is to be more real. And emotional intelligence is a huge component of that. So when I'm working with teams and leaders, I have to remind them, yes, you have these goals that you want to achieve. Okay. You want to hit this finish line by X date. Chances are that date is going to be movable. Okay. Chances are it's not going to go as smooth as you thought. But you cannot keep pushing forward if you are sensing a lot of resistance from your team and a lot of fear.
Right.
You need to kind of stop and pause and say, okay, let's talk about it. How you feeling? And then also acknowledge it.
Yes.
I acknowledge that this is scary.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's scary because even the leaders, it's their best guess
Yes.
what it's going to turn into, but they don't even know. And so acknowledging that as a leader and saying, we're making this decision because, and explaining the why, acknowledging the fear and the trepidation, asking for their feedback,
Yes.
and getting some of your team members who maybe aren't as afraid of change to be those change champions to help support
Oh, I like
everyone else who is digging their heels in.
that. Yeah. Change champions.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Is that trademarked?
It's not trade. I don't know. That's a great question. I know it's something that I've studied and read a lot, so I speak that language. But yeah. It's in John Cotter's model.
Yeah. Share a time when you yourself led a major change initiative successfully.
Okay.
And what were the key takeaways from that? Because I think it's a little bit different from when you see somebody else doing it and when you've actually done it yourself and recognize, I did this.
Sure. Gosh, there's so many that I could tell you about, because in 21 years, it's a long time, right?
Yeah.
But there's really maybe two that I'll touch on briefly. So with the organization that I was with, which was Greystar, for anyone who didn't know, and I love that company because I grew up there and I have so many memories, and, it's really a huge part of who I am today. But you remember this, but when Greystar was acquiring Riverstone.
Oh, yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
The largest company acquiring the second largest company.
Yes.
Right? That was like a historical moment. And with that, that's a lot of change. So not only merging people and teams,
And
but also
cultures.
systems, processes, all of that.
Yeah.
And so I was part of a group that was responsible for merging all of our standard operating procedures together. And the way that we were able to successfully do that is we put together a cross-functional team of team members from, both companies and various roles and positions, because first of all, we wanted to have both teams feel like they had a say. So I mentioned a moment ago, you got to get people involved in the change, right? So it was really instrumental that we pulled everyone together and allowed everyone to weigh in and encouraged healthy debate.
Oh.
Because what you don't want is to say, this is the way it's going to be, and that's it. You want to encourage debate that doesn't cross the line of being disrespectful, but that's not, you don't want harmony that's artificial. And a lot of organizations are doing that. Like, everyone's being nice and smiling, but it's not real.
It's kind of like with a marriage where you sweep stuff up underneath the rug, right? It's not going to go anywhere good.
Yeah.
If you do that, you've got to address it and accept it.
And
yeah.
I mean, well, that's a whole aside, but
That's a whole
I've
other
known
side.
couples like that who you would have never known that they weren't going to work out, because on the surface it was very fakey fake,
Right.
but underneath it all it was just like a, tsunami about to happen. Anyway, back to this change management, story. What made that successful is doing the things that I just mentioned, getting the right people involved, letting them have a voice, letting them really, in some cases, like debate it out.
Yeah.
And then getting to the point where, okay, we've all had our say, encouraging the unpopular opinions, by the way, you want those.
Right.
That's diversity of thought.
Yes.
But then once we've gotten it all out there and fleshed it out, now we got to make a decision that's going to be in the best interest of the majority of the people, the majority of the time. So that was a huge undertaking because those are two big ships combining.
I agree.
It took a lot of people, but that went so well because of the way that we did it. And we really did it, referring back to John Cotter's change model.
Yeah.
We followed that model, and that's why it was
and didn't even know you were following
Well,
at the time. You knew you were. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not like we sat down and said, okay, we must follow.
Yeah.
But we incorporated all of those elements, right? And another one was a paperless initiative, which was another big undertaking. Again, cross-functional teams, people from all different departments. We went and visited sites. We took many different teams from our software group, operations group, learning and development group, our supplier partner, and we went out and visited the sites who were responsible for moving these 8 different areas to completely paperless. And we went to the sites who were doing it well initially, and we went to the ones who were struggling, and we asked for their feedback. We're like, show us how you do it, talk to us about it, and nothing is off limits. Like, tell us how you really feel.
Yeah.
That's key. And we also engaged, again, those change champions. Like one of our paperless initiatives was maintenance professionals going from paper work orders to completely mobile devices. So mobile maintenance.
Yes.
A lot of them were really kind of scared about it. It's a lot of trepidation. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm good at fixing things, but this is not one of them, right?
Especially, I imagine back then. And the older mindset,
Correct.
Now they're all our
now
techies.
Everyone's
They're
got a smart
well,
device.
and they're fixing their, like my technical guys were always the best at, telling me how to use the software, right? Where I didn't expect them to be that great at it, right? They always were the best. So,
well, and once they got it, they were great. But what we did there in terms of getting our change champions involved, we found the service technicians who were just loved it. Like even some of them at first were a little bit nervous about it, but then once they started using it, they loved it. So we actually used them to help train it, and we got them on video and testimonials and using the whole feel, felt, found. Like, I understand how you feel. I was afraid too, but once I started using it, I found that it improved my job, and that was huge, right? So, yeah.
If listeners could take away just one lesson from our conversation here about leading with influence, what should that one lesson be?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to quote John Maxwell again. Okay. And this is a lot of what I focus on. But as a leader, our number one job is to lead ourselves first. And that's a lifelong journey. And if you think about the most difficult person that you've ever led, chances are it's the one looking back at you in the mirror. Right? And so I really want leaders to understand the importance of continual growth, both personally and professionally, growth and development. It should be something that you do every day. I loved what Jay Shetty talked about yesterday, because sometimes people can feel so overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, I have to go to the gym. That's going to take 3 hours. I have to read this whole book in, 2 days. No, 5 minutes a day. What are you going to do in these 4 areas to develop yourself? Everything that he talked about yesterday.
Yes, I have notes.
Oh my gosh. Well,
yes, it was wonderful.
His whole exercise, by the way, I'm a disc consultant. That's a whole disc
That's
thing.
a whole disc thing.
Oh my God. I am in love with the man. I'm in love with him, and I'm in love with Kenny Chesney. So Jay, call me. Kenny, call me. I'm available. But yeah, leading yourself first. That is the number one priority. It's a lifelong journey, because when you focus on leading and developing yourself as a leader, you will automatically be able to lead and develop others.
Exactly.
So that's really what I encourage people to do. And if you're not sure where to start, follow Jay's tips, but reach out to me. I'm happy to have a conversation
Well,
with
I was
you.
just going to ask you
Yeah.
how people can connect with you to learn more about your leadership programs, your speaking engagements. I know you've
Yeah,
got some stuff coming up,
I do.
and executive coaching services. How can they reach you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, Stephanie Puryear Helling. Connect with me. You can send me a message there. I am on Instagram, Stephanie Puryear Helling. I'm on Facebook, Stephanie Puryear Helling, and or SPH Services. I am on TikTok. I'm not on there as much. So you can connect with me there. My website is SPH, that stands for Stephanie Puryear Helling. So SPH at leadingpeopleandteamstosuccess.com. I would love to hear from you. If you have a question, I'd love to answer it for you, or let's connect and see how I can best serve you.
I love that. Thank you so much, Stephanie,
Thanks
for
for
spending
having
time
me,
with me
Michelle.
today again at the MRO show.
Yeah.
And hey, by the way, there is one other little topic that I want to talk with you about. So a teaser for
Okay.
our next time together, talk with Stephanie. And thank you for joining the
having
MRO
me.
show. You can also listen to more episodes at chadwellsupply.com/podcast.